welcome back to AR Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I am A.R. and today we have an authors panel. Brittany Leonard, Adam Gaffen, Tara A. Lake, and James Musgrave. How's everybody doing?
Okay.
Great.
Good.
Now, just as a little introduction, if you're not aware, if you're not fully in the know, Brittany is the author of A Life of a Shadow, as well as Element, which is a graphic novel that is coming soon in maybe a year or so. But, you know, graphic novels are a lot different route of work than a regular old novel. Not to say that a novel is anything light. Then we have Adam Gaffen, author of the Cassidy Chronicles, just released his fourth book, just talking about that he will have his audio version out within a month for the third installment, correct?
Hopefully it's in the hands of Audible now. So,
Lord.
Yeah, I had one book go through in about a week, but 30 to 45 days.
Yeah.
So that's 4 books in the series, 3 to be soon released within in a month, 3 audio collections. Beautiful. Then we have Tara A. Lake, Age of Almek. Age of the Almek? Was I missing it?
Age of the Almek.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Age of the Almek, dystopian sci-fi. I mean, I've riddled her with comments before and will continue riddling her with compliments. Just that book is phenomenal. As far as world building goes, I always give her the tip of the hat for it, truly. Then we have James Musgrave, prolific author. I mean, if I were to go off of the amount of titles, I believe you have 39 titles, and that's not even including the short stories and the. Yeah. I mean, it really is prolific.
Well, I'm old enough.
Last book is Dance of Murders, correct? The Dance of Murders?
The Dancing Murders.
The Dancing Murders. Oh, apologies.
Didn't know murders could dance, did you?
I did not. I immediately thought of like a little cha-cha routine with butchers in each hand. But kicking off into what I want to talk about today, it is something that I think we've all kind of not just dealt with, but also kind of had to go through. Like it's like obstacles. So the book is written up to your standards anyway. Plot is hammered out. Everything is gone. Now you're going through the rigorous part of editing and formatting. Walk me through, and we'll do it kind of clockwise. So starting from Brittany downwards, Adam, then Tara, then James. Walk me through that process. How was it for you doing the editing, the formatting, just getting all the little tidbits in there?
Oh, that was the worst part of the process to me. I don't know if that's a general consensus among authors, but
Yes.
Yeah.
Without a
so I published through Amazon, and I published a children's book for my first book. And I did the illustrations for it, and I also put borders around each picture. So I think that right off the bat, that was the most difficult part, was the borders, because no matter how it lined up on the page, I had to make sure that when it was cut, the borders would be there and not wonky. So that was definitely a barrier. Having said that, my next book is going to be a graphic novel, and there will be borders on most pages too. So at least I've been through the process and I know sort of what to do, but at the same time, I feel like it's such trial and error. And then on top of that, I'm working on a Mac. So, and I don't know how to use Adobe Acrobat or whatever it is for the PDFs. So I was just using Preview. So I'm doing it a super roundabout way. I'm like selecting my images that I want, and then I'm putting it into a PDF, but it's just through Preview. So then I have to go to like File, Print, Save As a PDF. And then I have to choose the cropping. But even if it looked really nice when I saved it, it didn't translate into the Kindle preview when you go and upload your documents. So I had to like kind of figure out what the difference was between my computer and Amazon. So that was my biggest barrier, and it took a couple months to figure out, because you have to order a print preview or whatever it's called, a proof copy.
The proof, yeah.
Yeah, wait for it to arrive, and then see that it sucks, and go through the process all over again. But it's been like 3 weeks, so then you don't remember what you did.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm there with you on just not even a couple weeks, but just a couple days. What kills me the most is that it's I mean, really it's the same thing as like doing technical pages in college. It's the whole editing thing is not only a grammar thing, but it's also a preference thing, right? The difference between a comma and an em dash is basically dependent on your writing and your use of semicolons or XYZ and all these things. The thing that I find the most annoying is, let's say that you get to chapter 4 and you're like, oh, how do I deal with an inner quote? Or how do I deal with somebody quoting somebody else within a dialogue? And you go like, all right, well, this is the answer. And then you get to chapter 19 and you're like, oh shit, yeah, what did I do? And you go with like something slightly different. It's like, oh yeah, basically the same thing. And then you just kind of cascade these effects down to the last chapter. Then you go through and realize that you're inconsistent. And really that's the most killer. Grammar is a motherfucker, but inconsistency within your own formatting is really, really, truly the killer. You know?
That's true. See, I with my books, they're so short, and like same with the graphic novel, the writing is really short what's going to be printed, right? Compared to most of it's just descriptions of panels and things like that, right? So yeah, the editing looks quite different for that one.
Oh my God, I can only imagine. Adam, what about you? Give me the trials and tribulations. You're muted, Adam.
I forgot. So I started with it back when Kindle Direct and Create Space were two different things. And so that was an entirely different animal. But when I went to do the first volume of the Cassidy Chronicles, that was, it was trial and error, because I did it through Amazon as well. And it was, okay, try it. Nope, didn't work. The margins are wrong, or this is wrong, or that is wrong. But the good thing is that once I had that all figured out and all formatted in the, then I went back to the original book, to the Cassidy Chronicles, and I wiped out everything that was in there and just set that up as a template. It's like, okay, I know this works. I know this formatting works. So these other books, now it's easy. But Brittany, it may or may not help you, but Amazon has Kindle Create, which is an app you can download from them. And essentially it does all the previewing, but it does it on your computer, so you can tweak it right there.
Oh, okay.
I've been using that a little bit. As for editing, I don't think there's a single writer who, when they're editing their own stuff, enjoys it. I know writers who are editors, so they'll edit somebody else's stuff, and that's fine. But I don't think there's a single writer who enjoys editing their own. It's just like, oh no, how did I do that?
I actually really enjoy it. I love watching how it changes. Like, I know some people hate having to change things, but I actually really enjoy watching the evolution of my own story.
Well, I see.
You have a tiny story.
Yeah.
Adam, do you mean like content editing or grammar editing? What kind of editing do you mean when you say you feel like writers don't really like it?
Either or.
Okay. I'm just curious.
It depends on who I'm talking to at the time. I edit as I go, which means when I'm at the end, most of the hard work has been done. I've already gone through it and gone through it multiple times. I'll read the previous day's work and, oh, geez, how did I do that? So I'll fix something before it gets buried, which means at the end of it all, it's not as arduous as, it could be otherwise.
And on, oh my God, that came out of nowhere. You saw that? You saw it. It just attacked me, that cough. You saw it.
Yep.
I
I'm
think
gonna get
called a fly.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, you saw
Brittany.
it. Gonna get my lawyers together. But honestly, I really agree with that. And what it is, I guess it's almost philosophical, because it kind of speaks to like most elements of life where you really do love it. I mean, I think that's like why we're writers. It's the whole aspect of it. I hate editing while I'm doing it, and while I have to. No, I hate editing 5 minutes prior to doing it. Know what I mean? When you have to sit down, it's like, oh, I have to edit, and you're just like going through it's like, oh, yeah, I don't want to do that. Then an hour into it, you realize you like it because time flies. I can't tell you the amount of times I sat down. It's like, all right, no, this page real quick, and then we go eat or whatever, and then I'm 4 chapters in. It's a back and forth. It's almost like I think any parent could say, and I'm speaking as a non-parent, so talk about salt, but
tread lightly, my friend.
Exactly. Yeah, but I would say most parents like being a parent, but they probably don't like, I don't know, like the little nuances, right?
The details. Yeah.
If anybody asked a person, it's like, oh, do you like being a parent? I think anybody would unanimously be, it's like, yeah, it's awesome. But if I ask you on, I don't know, a Monday at like 7, and like they're making you late and you want to go to class and they're just giving you shit, you'd probably give a different answer at that moment. But at the general consensus is like, yeah, of course I love being a parent. I think it's kind of the same thing with editing and writing. I don't know if that analogy really works, but I kind of just made it up as I went, how it goes. And
yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah.
And speaking about Kindle Create, Tara, and it's actually really funny because Tara is actually the person that I've been going to with any like formatting errors that I had. Again, just because Age of the Almek, she did it herself and it came out just like beautifully. So I'll just always ask her for references and like, oh, how do you do these little things like that? And she actually has a pretty good story of like the opposite side of Kindle Create. Could you kind of go into that, and as well as like your own trials and tribulations with editing and formatting and whatnot?
Yeah, Kindle Create was such a nice program to use. I just downloaded the app and then plopped my book in there and then just kind of formatted it as I went, and it was super user friendly. And then it was just great because it like the program converts your manuscript right into the EPUB format or whatever, gets it all good to go. Uploaded it on Amazon, perfect. However, now when I want to go in and make an edit, I can't access that file. So even though I see the file name there, it's saved. Anytime I click on it, it says file unavailable. So now if I want to go in and make any edits on that file, I have to start from scratch and re-upload my file and go through all of those changes again. So I don't know if that's, an error on my end because I'm not super tech savvy, or if that was a glitch with the program. Anyone else that?
I think so. Are you trying to access it from like a drop-down menu, or are you trying to access it from within Kindle Create?
Right within Kindle Create.
Should have a Kindle Create version, that should load right in.
Yeah.
That's what it does with mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it has, how it has like the photo and then the title. It's there and I can see it and I click on it. It's just doesn't let me in.
Well, I guess it kind of.
And I've like spent some time. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please. Continue.
Oh, I was just gonna say I spent some time like trying to research, like how do I, has anyone else come across this? And I came up with nothing. So that was it. Yeah.
Might be your network. I don't know.
Probably not the network.
Yeah.
Software is just a really weird kind of hurdle. There's a lot of it that's pretty rudimentary. I mean, most of my graphic designing I do on Inkscape actually. But things like Photoshop, again, I use Krita, which is a little different than Photoshop, but there's certain layers of it that can get really complex. For example, I know that using Photoshop or Krita, you can make a 3D mock-up of the book, which is something that a lot of people pretty highly anticipated. I personally can't do that right now, though. It's not even that hard. Supposedly, via the tutorials I've seen on YouTube, but I have not been able to do it so far. It's weird how just you're almost limited by software, which is I guess the whole thing of like the indie publishing. I guess like that's the whole big thing of it. Prior, you would have an entire industry behind you, which also, to be honest, cut into your profits. So it's a back and forth. Now it's fully on your end, and
Right.
and I feel like if you really put your back behind it, like put your back into it and fully try to make again, perfection is a hard thing to go, but at least if you can make something that you yourself consider perfection, something that you, it's like, all right, to me it's kind of all right. Obviously when other people go in, there's no such thing as perfection. The moment somebody else goes like, oh yeah, but why didn't you choose purple instead of red, boom, done. No more perfection. But at least if you can go into something at your head of it, the proudest you can get to it, I think. And I think a lot of people just kind of naturally are attracted to that type of thing. I think people just like seeing a passion project. I know I do when I see it, and when I can see the actual just passion emulating off a person. And right now, text break is what I'm doing. I'm designing text breaks, like the scene changes within a chapter. That's where I'm at right now, losing my entire mind. It's the easiest thing to design. It's a couple lines, and you do a little, fucking around with it, and that is it. Losing my mind though, because it's one of the, you don't know where to go. It's like, oh well, there's these fantasy ones, but these sci-fi ones, or the sci-fi fantasy. How do I even? And then you start getting too deep into your own head of like, wait a minute, why am I even considering genre for a text break? I should just make a text break. It's not that crazy big of a deal. I don't think the difference between a Hugo and no Hugo is going to be 3 triangles versus 3 dots that I use for a text break. But again, it's just perfection. I don't know. It's a weird type of.
You're an artist. You're an artist. Your right hemisphere brain, takes over. Screw you, organized editor type. You don't know shit.
Well, it's a great segue because you are, again, prolific. So how do you go with the formatting and the editing of all the works that you've gone through?
Everything you've said multiplied like for 20 years. No, I think, it's like the old deal where we know that software makers make the stuff for themselves, mostly ever since Steve Jobs died, I guess, where he used to say, we make it for our clients, not for the techies, But anyway, I think that's part of the problem, is that the advancements are seen as advancements by the techies. They think, wow, add this and this is cool, and then we'll add this, and they all sit in the meeting and go, yeah, right on. And then they get it and test it, and people don't like it. Start complaining like we're complaining. Anyway, no, I think mostly, Amazon's got it nailed as far as giving independents some kind of track, to compete. And they've mostly improved it, I think, overall. At least it doesn't take me that long. I think the editing on the last book, especially because I was trying something entirely different, because part of my thing is that if we indies don't push the edge or the envelope or live on the razor edge or whatever cliche you want to use, we're not going to last. I mean, we won't compete. We have to do the edgy stuff because the big, slow behemoths take, our year is like 7 years to them. It's like a dog's age difference with the big publishers. We can do it a lot faster. We're leaner, more efficient with our, ability to try out new things. So that's what I did. I was working on a mystery that I was fascinated by the idea of having first person, kind of monologue by characters, because I realized from all my experience that the first person point of view is the most intimate. That's why you have the hard-boiled detectives, were the first ones that were popular in the 40s and 50s and so forth. And I still believe that. I think noir is still pretty popular. So I wanted to try it from the suspects end, where I have 4 different suspects. Dig this. This is all had to be in my head when I was writing and editing. 4 different suspects. One chronology for what I'm working with in my mystery. The first 5 chapters are regular format, third person point of view. I'm describing what's happening and all this, the usual mystery.
Setup.
Yeah, setup.
The usual
First
suspects.
5 chapters. Except the 2 first chapters, I want to try something else again. I wrote it in second person.
Cool.
From the that's what an editor said. She thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, here I am talking with somebody, but you don't hear the other conversation because it's, and it works. I just heard the audiobook portion being read by my narrator at Audible. It sounds awesome when she reads it. But yeah, so I was trying out something new there. But these 4 different mystery suspects narratives just about drove me insane. I mean, COVID is enough. It's like you worry about that at my age. But doing this was 10 times worse than worrying about COVID. I mean, it was like, I got to get this right. I got a twist here. I got to have a new development in this character's, or they're not going to want to read all 4 narratives from the first person point of view of a suspect. And I had to keep, I had to put some humor in it to lighten it up because it's a murder deal. And so anyway, that was my thing, is like writing this and keeping it in my mind and then going back and editing and make sure I had the right tense and the right,
Oh my God, the tense.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, my kingdom. Just to never,
Yeah.
ever have a problem with tense again. Jesus. It's unreal. And it sneaks up on you.
Yes.
The most annoying thing ever is no matter how many edits you do of yourself and just go through your own stuff, it is unreal how you almost start developing a synapses memory to your own writing that you just forget, like you just omit it. You can read the same sentence 8 times and you're like, oh yeah, it's fine to me. And then another person will read it, it's like, oh no, you put like a double A there. How do you not see that? It's like, oh shit, no, yeah. Because in my head, I was seeing it perfect.
That's right.
Like I wrote it down how I wanted to write it, and in my head, that's how it was. And my brain just went with it. And it's unreal how that happens, and not just happens on your personal point, but I catch edits that, and not knocking my editor, she's a powerhouse, amazing, but I'll catch errors on that end too. It's almost unending, as adds to, I guess, like the Damocles sword, that it just feels like there's an impending doom about to hit you, another error around the corner. It's a weird feeling to kind of get over, especially with authors, because, well, I guess musicians feel the same way, but when we drop our release, that's it. You can edit the ebook, that is a thing. But for example, if you have an error for a paperback, that's done. That's how it is. And I feel that what's weird, and something that I'm actually trying to talk to myself into, is that I think you'll always feel that. I feel if Stephen King were to pick up Stand By Me right now, he'd probably tear it apart. Be like, oh, I can't even look at this. Oh, no. Yeah, I remember I couldn't even set up a scene right, and I had to like do all these weird things for formatting. I mean, it's unending. But James actually brought up a point that a great segue that I want to get into, and it was what pushing the envelope is.
Yeah.
I really have to agree with that to a certain extent anyway. We are kind of put up at the edge, especially with all the insane amounts of competition that there are. You know, whether it's edited or not, or it's vanity press versus actual just pure indie press, or there's different classifications, different genres. I mean, romance specifically is knocking everybody else out the loop. And all these things confirmed and combined, it leads to the end result that we really have to push the envelope in this industry in order to really get things in our name, which is why I always tip my hat off when I see things like what Adam is doing, what Brittany's doing, what James just talked about. And obviously Tara too, with the rules that are set up right in the beginning of the book. Is that I think we really have almost a gun to our head to really try to do something that hasn't been done before. How do you feel about that and the coming changes in the industry that brings? Again, well, you can just answer however you want, or you can do the Brady Square.
I don't know if I have an answer to that, so anyone else can feel free.
I don't know if I necessarily 100% agree with it, because I feel like you can take a story, like it's Margaret Atwood suggests that you take a fairy tale, Red Riding Hood, and then you switch it around and you have her up in the castle, up in the tower, and you bring in a different villain and you have a whole new story. So I feel like I don't know, you can work with sort of like the core of any story that's out there, and depending on how you share your story, depending on where your story is, all these little details, it creates your story. So I don't know if there's this pressure to come up with something. I mean, I didn't feel that way. I can't speak for everyone, but I didn't feel this pressure to come up with something crazy, unique, and cool. I just feel like, we're creatives and we're resourceful. We have these, like you said, that right brain, we're meant to do this.
Yeah.
So we just pull things together.
Yeah, I didn't when I was talking, I didn't mean to insinuate that we're coming up with something entirely new that's never been done. I'm like King David in the Bible, nothing's new under the sun.
Yeah.
It's just, I really agree with that. However, we can experiment with our right hemisphere usually, where we're connecting dots all the time, disparate elements we bring together because that's totally awesome and that's cool, putting them side by side. And so that's what I meant, you exercising our right hemispheres the way we should, because we're artists, and not be afraid to experiment, because we don't have to wait all that length of time that you have to, because I've worked with big publishers, and you have to wait, man. They'll have a meeting on it, if it's controversial enough, or they think marketing is gonna freak out. But that's what I meant, is that we have the flexibility, the resourcefulness, and the guts, to try it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with James, and not to contradict your point, but the example that you brought up, Tara, is actually what I meant. You take a simple story like that we've all seen before. It's like, all right, well, what happens if we just twist it? That's actually precisely what I mean. It's just those little things like that. That's what I mean by kind of flipping the script, because to me, because to me, that like when a person hears that, it's like, oh, okay, I haven't heard that before. Or if they have, it's like, oh, that's like that one story that I really liked. I wonder how this one would play out.
Yeah,
it's something that either hasn't been done before, which is unlikely, or at least hasn't been done profusely. Because there are thousands of ways to do things, and Tara and I have a huge love for Breaking Bad and just Better Call Saul and all those things, and the way that story and world building just unveils. I mean, you truly just never understand what is like. Well, I can't say understand you. He does a pretty good job of understanding the emotions, but you just never can see what's coming. And I think that's one of the best type of world buildings.
That's a good point. Surprise.
Yes, when you yourself
Yeah.
are
You surprise yourself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
when a character is actually, when you're almost mad at a character. It's I've just rewatching Breaking Bad as I do like these edits, and it's unreal how in this viewing of it I actually dislike Walter, because now I truly understand a little bit more of the world building and understand the level of selfishness that was this man, and just how everything goes to it is just so crazy. And another thing that kind of brought me into that thinking, and it kind of goes into what I was saying about pushing the board, is how do you feel about the current status of female heroines, and what do you think are like great examples of some?
So I'll throw one out there.
Oh, please.
Yeah, right off the bat. Honor Harrington out of Dave Weber's books. You know, if you want the almost the prototype of a strong female character, she fits the bill.
Well, I can't speak on it because can you elaborate a little bit on it? I actually haven't read that book before.
Is anyone familiar with
No.
the Honor Harrington books?
Not.
So Dave has been writing this series for 30 years now, and it started off. There are a lot of parallels between his Honor Harrington books and the old Horatio Hornblower books by C.S. Forester.
Oh.
You know, military. It's, you know, the Hornblower books were the Napoleonic Wars, Britain versus France. This is set 1,000 years in the future, but she's at the center of it. She enters the, you know, the first book is on Basilisk Station, and she's the unjustly exiled. You know, she's still in command of her ship, but she's being blamed for something that wasn't her fault, and she's been shoved out into the middle of nowhere, and her crew hates her because they feel that they're being blamed unjustly for her screw ups, and there weren't any, you know, she didn't screw up, whatever. But there's got to be 20 books in this series, and it's branched out a little bit. Eric Flint has gotten involved. He's written some books with David. Timothy Zahn has gotten involved as well. He's written some books, so it's a whole universe. But this character has grown through all of these books, and you know, she, like I said, she's a prototypical strong female character, but she's also a character who has developed and grown and changed through the books. She's not the same person, so she has evolved as the circumstances of the book have changed. So, yeah, that's definitely right up there. And I'll throw another one out there. You know, you want to go back a little bit further. Friday, Robert Heinlein.
Oh, dude, I thought you were talking about Friday with, like, you know, Smokey and Craig.
Yeah. And Friday was one of the inspirations for my Cassidy books. Again, just you know, she's only in one book, so there's not as much opportunity for growth. It can't be as gradual as Honor Harrington did. But again, this strong female protagonist, you know, not relying on somebody to come rescue her. You know, she's out there doing what she needs to do because it needs doing.
Brittany, what about you? Curious to hear your thoughts on this.
I have to agree with you. I don't like characters that stay stagnant, that don't grow. And woman characters, I hate when they're like objectified too much. Like, I read a lot of graphic novels, so if they're just like, the whole purpose of them being there is to be hot, then I'm just like,
Mhm.
why are you even in there?
Preach.
Right? Like I want
Preach.
there to be some more substance to it. And in terms of like the hero's journey, I find sometimes with girls, like they come off very helpless in stories, more so than a male lead in a hero's journey. So sometimes that can really get to me. Or just like, I also really hate when hero or heroine is like, oh, why does it have to be me? Like, they're just like, oh, they just feel so butthurt that they're the chosen one.
Yep.
That
Oh,
happens a lot, actually.
Yep.
Much.
Yeah.
And you know what's my favorite thing about that is that somebody wrote that. Like I always, as like a kid, and honestly, I got rid of the habit maybe a year ago. I always thought that stories just are stories. They're like, you can't change it. That's just what they are. They're just organic. Like a tree falls down from an apple falls down from a tree. That's what it is. You can't complain. And then when you start writing and you realize that somebody controls that, so go peer into that. Somebody wrote the story where everything falls together for this character, and then they had the audacity to write the dialogue. Oh, I can't believe this happened to me, motherfucker! You wrote it. What are you talking about? You can't believe this happened to me. I'm telling you. But I guess in that sense, if it's done right, I guess it's done right, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the reason we talk about it is because like we've seen it so much, but the first person to do it probably blew minds back in the day.
Well, and some of it too is if the author is trying to reflect reality, because people do say that. I mean, people really do say the why me.
Yeah.
So if you're writing a realistic character, then at some point they're probably going to be in a situation where they go, oh, why is this happening to me? The trick is first not overplaying it, like AR was saying. This isn't something, this isn't a card you can play in every chapter. And the other part is what Kendra keeps bumping into is she's making these choices. She's putting herself into this situation. She's doing this, and so she's accepting the responsibility of, okay, this is a choice I've made. This is what I've got to do to move forward from here. It's not complaining for the sake of complaining. It's not even complaining. It's as such. It's just, okay, all right, I did this. Now what? Oh, if I do that.
Yeah, it's almost like the lowest point of like, victimizing themselves. It's the lowest point right before they kind of come around and accept it, and then kind of start, accelerating their journey towards being the hero, right?
Tara, is that Stanley behind you? Are you in the office?
I was waiting for somebody to notice. Thank you for noticing.
Oh my God. That is fun. Oh my God, that is phenomenal. You can't do that type of stuff to me because you completely derailed me. Now I'm just thinking about that. It's like, oh man, we should just do that now and have like little things of like, yeah. I remember I got onto the podcast with A.R. I don't know why he invited me. It was such a weird conversation. He's such a weirdo. James, what do you feel about the whole female heroine trope, and how do you feel like the industry has changed, and how are you trying to change it if you are?
Don't get me started. I grew up with 4 sisters, first of all. So
I remember. I
know the female realm. I was the oldest, so I got to observe a lot and learn. That's experiential, has nothing to do with being a writer. My whole series, the Portia of the Pacific series, has a female protagonist, detective and lawyer. So not only is she brilliant, well, she lost a lot of cases actually because of mostly the patriarchal system, because it's set in the 19th century. But she also has a lot more to fight. You had the patriarchy, you had no taxes at all. So, no kind of welfare system or help for the poor. The we take for granted today. In fact, Clara Shortridge Fultz is her name, was a historical character. So I read her biography. That helps a lot when you're writing historical mysteries. So you read about the real character, and then you extrapolate that information and boil it around with all the other crap we have in our brains and come out with the storyline. And the readers who enjoy my books the most enjoy the way I weave the history and the real characters in with my plots. They love the fictional storytelling and the world building of that historical setting. So I've really enjoyed creating this woman, writing as a woman thinks. In fact, I just got a compliment from one of my beta readers who said that she loved that these were powerful women, in 1888 San Diego that I was writing about. In fact, Wyatt Earp looks kind of like a little bit of a wimpy guy next to them. So if you compare Wyatt Earp and the OK Corral, with 3 brothel madams who are competing, by the way, so that's it. I'm very up on what women had to fight to just get, human rights. We're not talking, equal rights at all. That's what they wanted, most of them. Although, ironically, in my research, I found out that during the 19th century, the reason the suffrage movement never really succeeded fast enough was that over half of the women didn't want suffrage at all. I know to a lot of women today, that's kind of inconceivable, but it's the truth. They enjoyed being at home and, being a mother, and that's the role they believe should be played. I think that has a lot to do with the same division we have today with the religious folks, and the so-called Trumpers and a lot of people really still believe in that family life, is very important. And even executive women have a difficult time today choosing, do I have to be a mother, or first of all, they have to be everything. Women usually have to juggle a lot of different plates. And it was the same in the 19th century, only compounded with the backdrop of a patriarchal system that oppressed everybody. And Fultz actually passed the law that allowed women in California to go to law school, first of all. She passed the laws that established the first public defender's office, that because there wasn't any, the poor did not get any legal representation, until they passed the law to establish, paid defense for people who are indigent and minorities and divorced women. And she was a divorced woman also, had 5 children on the plains of Nebraska. And then her Civil War husband ditched her for a young woman and left her with 5 kids. So she had to lie about being, she had to lie and say she was a widow, that he had died instead of divorced. Because in those days, if you said you're divorced, you don't get any job. You're put aside, in the hierarchy of employment. So
yeah, time
really
frames
proud.
are.
Excuse me.
No, time frames are like in general pretty interesting. Like,
Yeah.
I remember reading like a story back in the day. It was like kind of like an American Old West type of thing. Like right after the Lewis Purchase, whatever it is, I'm talking
Lewis
about.
and Clark.
Yeah, Lewis and Clark. They got their homies together and was like, yo, what's up, cuz? Let me get that rest of the country for like 3 beans, and they got it. And So when people started to like migrate over there and take over more of the country and whatnot, obviously they had like a huge like difference on like just like migration and settling and whatnot. So this book called Ethan Frome was kind of like developed from that. I don't know if like how many people are aware to that. And it's one of the most interesting books that I've ever read, because like if you were to ask me what happens in it, nothing happens. I mean, it is literally just the life of a person. He has this wife that's old and bitter and just annoying as fuck, and then she has a cousin that's 14 years old, and the main character is like in his like I don't even know what 40s 50s, and the entire thing is like him having like an undeniable attraction to this 14-year-old, and it's written in the point of it's written in with an idea of love. And if you were to read that thing, age isn't even an idea. It's not, they don't even talk about her age. I don't even think they even mention her age outside of like context clues.
But you were legal at that age. You were legal at 12 years old.
Yeah, well, it's not even a legal thing. By 14, you were pumping out kids. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? At 15, 16, if you were a guy, you were going out to the war. These are real things. Not even going out to the war. 16, you already have been back from the war. You already gone through those horrors. So it's not until you kind of zone out and look at it from a different point of view that you're able to kind of decipher in a different way. I think that's in itself is really interesting. To the whole female character thing and how that develops, there is a movie that I watched, easily one of my favorite movies of 2019, called The Hunt. The female character in that movie is, I mean, phenomenal. I have never seen a female heroine, a female protagonist like her in any other movie. I mean, just to again talk about, you know, pushing the bill as far as plot development goes, you don't even meet the character until half hour in. So what it is basically it's kind of a retelling of The Most Dangerous Game. You know, a whole bunch of people get other humans together in an area in order to hunt them. So in that first kind of half hour, people are just scrambling and understanding what the situation is. You see a 5-minute little situation of the protagonist, who you don't even know is a protagonist, go up to a lake, mess with her, take a needle, put it in her hair, and then put it on top of a leaf and study its direction. I didn't understand until a third viewing of that movie that what she was doing was magnetizing the needle in her hair and then putting on a leaf in order to tell a direction, in order to point out where magnetic north is. That is how intricate the storytelling of that was. And then basically every person that you see the point of view of dies. Every person that you think is the protagonist dies up until you finally meet this woman. And she just goes throughout the entire movie saying maybe 10 lines and throughout the entire flick. And she kills everybody. Everybody. And it's not even like a you know, John Wick type of thing. Like she's like ultra badass, what she is. It's more that you like her like personality. She, like her personality isn't like what people keep on asking us, like, oh, why is this happening to us? Why is all this shit happening? She was like, I don't care why it's happening. Someone's trying to kill me. I'm gonna teach them what's up.
Survival mode.
Yeah. They're trying to kill me. I'm gonna kill them. There's no other equation. There's no other math. I don't care about anything. And again, that was one of those things. The reason why I bring up the question is that it was so refreshing to see that. Very few times do we see that true, almost callous maliciousness in a female character. Even when you have a character who's, you know, you have a Cruella character, at that last 15 minutes, they will have some type of thing where it's a flashback to her being a kid and she's being mistreated, or it's like she got her heart broken. Like they always bring it back. They never let a female character, I can't say never, but most of the things that I see, they never let a female character fully just be that level of callous. They always bring it back to something. She's a mother. There's some type of emotional element. They always have to like, I guess, delude the character in a sense.
That's why I liked Elizabeth Moss in The Invisible Man. You know, the redo.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Is that actually the same Elizabeth Moss? Horrible with names. I don't know why I questioned it. Yeah.
She plays an awesome female.
Yeah. No, and to
under
be honest,
horrendous conditions, you know what I mean? It's like,
no, yeah, that's actually, she's the
predator.
same. Yeah, she's the same actress from The Handmaid's Tale, which is again another type of thing with the whole women's suffrage. It's actually pretty interesting that they kind of brought that up, the actress up anyway.
Yeah, I love her. Yeah,
I was gonna say Elizabeth Moss in The Handmaid's Tale, her story, like just the way that character arc goes is incredible. Like she's in the, the like just a terrible situation, and she's, basically she starts off as a helpless victim, right? And she's a mom and she's separated from her kids, and in the beginning that is her main concern, and then she just changes. Like I just started watching season 4. Is anybody watching The Handmaid's Tale?
No, but I need to jump on it now.
Yeah, it's just she's a very different character now. Like she's very strong and empowering others, which is really awesome. Yeah.
Like one of the things that I kind of always bring up is Khaleesi from Game of Thrones, but only up to a certain season, right? Because, and I'm not even talking necessarily about the later ones, but I think just when she starts amassing power, it just starts getting like when she first came up, and her whole story wasn't even that she wants power as much as she just like wants freedom for the people around her. That's something truly awe-inspiring. But the moment she starts going and she's like, well, I'm a Targaryen, I deserve this shit, it's when it starts getting a little bit mystified for me, because again, it's like you want to see a character that's truly noble. You see Jon Snow doesn't falter throughout that series ever, but for whatever reason they made Khaleesi do that. Why? Again, it's just one of those things that I never understood. And to bring up Brittany's point, which I want to talk about the moment she brought up, specifically in graphic novels and anime, highlight underscore, no matter how badass they always make a character, they always have to sexualize her or like just do something that doesn't make any sense. Her male counterparts are in full armor, no skin is showing, no skin, not even a neck is showing. Her armor is a bra and basically a bikini with like some studs around the shoulder pads and like maybe like a thigh guard or something like that, and that's it. Why do we do that? It's something that I've never understood, even as a kid, when like the hormone craze was going. Even then I didn't understand it, because I don't get why we don't sexualize Sylvester Stallone or The Rock or like any of these people. Well, I guess we do. Ooh.
There's a little
Brittany,
bit of
talk about tell me, because I'm talking as a guy, so please fill me in. Do you think that happens on both sides, or am I just talking out of my neck here?
I mean, what sex is sex. It's like we were
And
talking
it
about
sells.
that.
I don't think it happens to the same extent on both sides.
That's true.
A lot more for women,
but I do think it happens on both sides.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah.
Well, again, I guess bringing everything together with the pushing the limit thing, and I guess it doesn't even necessarily be like pushing a crazy limit, but just trying to make our own, like trying to stamp our own voice into this industry. Do you feel there is a need for a change in the way that these tropes are being presented, and if there is, what do you think you can do in order to change that?
Well, for my graphic novel, I'm still kind of designing the characters right now, like in terms of their look and what they wear and whatnot. But
and check out that art. It's all up on her Instagram, author Brittany Leonard.
Yeah, I want to see if she sexualizes them.
I feel like some of my early illustrations, like I didn't really care what kind of clothes they were putting on, or maybe even at the time I wanted more revealing clothes. But I think I'm gonna have the main character. She's gonna be most of the time in hoodies, like, and that's what I notice the kids wear these days. Is I'm a teacher too, right? So I see them and I know what they wear, and they, especially the girls, like they're not comfortable in their bodies. They're not trying to wear these little things. Like some of them are, I guess, sometimes, but for the most part, like they find comfort in their sweaters and things they could pull up around themselves. So that's what I've decided to do. And there are different climates in my book. So one of the climates is super, super hot. So that's the only place that she's gonna wear less clothing. And by that I mean like shorts and a tank top, and might like take a top layer off, sort of thing. But that makes sense in that type of scenario. And then the other places she's gonna dress for comfort.
Oh, I mean, take a look at my two characters.
No, I notice them.
I was wondering if they were your characters.
Yeah, you've never noticed them.
Oh, and by the way, when Adam was talking about Kendra is one of the main it's one of the female leads of the character. There's no author here called Kendra. Just making sure.
Yes.
But again, Adam, please continue.
Oh, it's just, you know, when I mention clothes in the books, you know, it's just they're wearing clothes that are appropriate to the situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and since most of it is taking place, most of the later 3 books are taking place in outer space, they're wearing uniforms
Mm-hmm.
because that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and fortunately, I have a designer who gets that.
Yeah.
And so.
Well,
Yeah, that's the thing about superhero outfits when they're like in like a little like
oh
bathing.
my God, yes.
It's like you're not fighting crime in a little bathing suit like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel, I guess, is understandable because I mean you don't want like a loose fitting thing while you're in space travel. But Black Widow, what are we doing?
Mhm.
What are we doing? How is tight leather functional? You explain this to me. Have you worn leather before? That's just not that. You know what I mean? What are we talking? Spandex, maybe. I'll give you spandex, but leather? Why? And tight forming like that? I mean, it is just so weird. And I guess to give you a little background into like what I was doing in my very first writing of Allegory of the End, when I was kind of dealing with it, I had this idea of making, because I'm dealing with like a far future. They're not even on the same planet. So my idea was that I was going to get rid of mostly everything. I mean, there's no race color because, you know, everybody has, you know, everyone's fucked. So basically there's no like, there is a little bit of classification between tan and a little bit more tan, but for the most part, everyone is just amalgam. It's just human, right? Our DNA has spread evenly enough. And I also want to like get on the whole idea was at first that there was, and again, I was wrong, and I have then changed it. But initially, I thought of like, oh, and there's no like such thing as girly girls either, because like, you know, everyone is homogenized. Girls play with boys the same way that, you know, there's no idea of this thing. So basically, every girl's like a tomboy. And it didn't take me until I think my 3rd or like 4th rewrite, and talking years ago, that I realized like how wrong that thinking was, because feminism isn't just you know, saying that women can just like be CEOs and be whatever they want. It also means that they can stay home and be a mother if they so choose. Feminism is a choice. It's not saying we all have to do this now. So when I understood that is when I understood it's like, oh yeah, that doesn't make any sense in order to say that no, there's no such girly girls, because there's girls that just generally like doing that. They're like wearing makeup and doing all that's not a sexual thing that society instills upon you. Well, necessarily. I would say, like, I guess like the level of rampantness that we have today, probably a little bit. But for the most part, I think there's a lot of people that just naturally enjoy that type of stuff. So just that little inspiration, that little thought inspired a new character that was basically the antithesis of my original thinking. And that character now has her own spin-off. I mean, Iris of Mercy is half her story. I mean, like her entire life is so engraved in the, you know, mythos of what Allegory of the End is going to start, that it almost blows my mind that I guess that ignorance would have changed the story significantly, which is again why I bring up this whole thing of it's not just an industry change and seeing it like within other people, but it's seeing it within yourself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, yeah. Especially if you grew up in a sexist environment, which I did. Military, you know, my dad was the old-fashioned guy, you know, women barefoot and pregnant, keep your mouth shut, barefoot. You know, basically. And so that's what tough. I had to overcome personally, you know, was all those messages, you know, of really anti-female, you know, which is ironic because it taught me a lesson about male and female relationships, because my father wasn't very popular with women because of it, even though he was very handsome and, you know, physically great looking guy, you know, but he had this attitude, you know, this kind of sexist attitude that I learned a lot from, because it was negative. It was a negative example.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the most psychic growth I've ever experienced was learning from my childhood and all the negative things that happened.
But not to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You speak of something that's really interesting. I mean, I myself, now I was raised by my mother and my sister, and I was raised by female, basically.
Yep.
But it's almost weird how much I can still attest
Most
to that
of us
type.
are.
I can still weirdly attest to that type of thinking. I mean, especially without like the presence of like a father there, I felt like my mom and sister were like extra on it. I can't tell you the amount of times I heard "stop being a pussy" as a kid. Oh, I can't tell you. By women. So like I remember so this PC movement happens X and Y Z later, and I'm losing my mind because it's like, oh, we can't say that now, but like all my life I heard it from women telling me that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird how all the sexes just like plays into it. And again, it's not only our duty, but I guess it's innate in the writing aspect, that everything that we've been through, all our experiences and what we understand of the world and how we grow and change our view of the world all gets reflected into our writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, as much as it's, writing strong female leads, it's, what about the male characters, right? Because they're allowed to be emotional. I think it's important that I think it's important that they're supporting their female lead too, right? So that's another thing, is it's not just who is your female, how is she operating in the world, it's who's around her and how are they treating her. But I will say I struggle with rules, so I don't like just saying there can be no women wearing skimpy clothes and we cannot sexualize. I don't want to say rules like that, and I won't follow rules like that. I feel like if it's appropriate for your story, for your characters, if it, if everybody across the board, you've created, this new planet, and, people across the board are wearing, little tiny leaf, bikinis and bathing suits, and men too, and you see everybody's bodies, then cool, that's part of your story and your world building. And clothing is a huge part of world building, right? But it's like, if you've got, a world where everybody's in black pants and black hoodies, and then all of a sudden you have this heroine who's in a bathing suit, or like, the tight leather clothes we're talking about, that just seems cheesy and overdone. So I think it's just, does it fit your world? Does it fit your characters? Just, there's a lot of things to consider, right, with it, but I struggle with rules. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because I actually do have like a planet that they go to, and at this point the clothing design of that is more revealing, because on the other hand, I do think sexuality shouldn't be something that people should be ashamed of, and if that's comfortable to people, then that should be okay. So I did actually like even do that on exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I think is actually a really good example of that? Zion from the Matrix, like when they show it in the Matrix 2 and then Matrix 3, and how it is just, I mean, like a tribal society. I mean, like it's just like overly sexualized. And the very first time I saw it, I was like, oh, they're doing this just to up the ratings, There wasn't enough titties in the last movie. They're trying to get more money. I get it. But it wasn't until I realized that it's not, they're not being unjust with it. They're sexualizing both sides here. And it was then that I realized, like, oh, this is the society. And I guess I understood the grander message. Like, if you're down to the essence of human kind, like we're literally living underground, close to the core of the earth. Like that's like where the last of the warmth is, and the world's run by machines. I mean, accentuate the one thing that we all know we like. It kind of made sense. And again, it was what Tara said, that it wasn't like that the guys were in full, mech suits and the girls were walking around like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? They were both like that. And again, the reason I love these goddamn talks so much, I had never thought about that before. I guess I always considered that, like, how we view the male protagonist is kind of like the goal. Whereas like the female one is like kind of needs to catch up to that. I never would have considered that both sides are messed up.
Yeah.
Because the guys also need to, show emotion more. They need to show just like again, I guess it's just what I accentuate as a man with based on the society I grew up in, the environment, the culture.
Yeah.
That's how guys handle their shit. That's how people here. It's not even a gender thing. That's why I like that character from The Hunt so much. No talking, just action.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I've always viewed those type of elements as what being like about your shit meant. It was just no emotion, you know. You just put it all into a ball until it crushes you, like when you're 55 and you just have like a stroke out of no reason. You know.
Yeah.
God, Tara, I really love that point. Honestly, it's gonna ricochet through my writing now. My God, no, honestly, I never thought that it's that both sides are kind of missing here. Honestly, wow,
and that's
opened my eyes.
That's also not to say that you can't have, a sexualizing or a sexist character in your story either, right? So in Age of the Almek, it's it's a novel that's kind of basically about like this civilization surviving a water crisis. And there's a list of laws at the beginning of the novel that this new civilization has to abide by. And one of them is no sex before marriage, and their marriages are kind of arranged. And anyway, so there's this one character who's best friends with the male protagonist, and this side character is very sexist. Like you'll hear him say shit like, oh, I'd like to bend her over, stuff like that. And the main male character is the one who's respectful and he's sticking up for women, and he'll just kind of like smack him in the stomach. And he is the one who is supporting the main heroine. So it's like, even though these side characters have very small parts, you see little bits of personalities, and it helps your world it helps your world seem bigger too. So it's okay to have those bad characters. It's not as if we can't have people that are being inappropriate in our stories, but I think it's just a lot about being kind of mindful and considerate of who your main characters are, because that's who the reader is going to be relating to most, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It kind of speaks to what Adam always brings about with his goal of Cassidy Chronicles, that the inspiration for it was that one of the main characters has a beautiful idea of what the future can be from the whole Star Trek thing that she was inspired as a kid. So it's that idea that there's something that could be perfect. And I guess that's what I was kind of stuck on with the world building that I was doing beforehand, when I had like the whole idea of that, like there's no girly girls, everyone's a tomboy. It was that I had this idea of the future that I wanted to be almost as perfect as possible, but the main thing to always remember is that humans are just innately not. And for as high as you get with technology, as awesome as people can get, it's like, oh no, we don't even die anymore, all these things. The reason why history persists is because humans have not evolved emotionally. And if you want to write that story where we do, right there, you have a plot line. But as of right now, for a human's current standpoint, there is no 3.0 for our like software. There's no empathy 3.6 or whatever you want to call it. We have what we have, and you're almost limited by it. One of my favorite things to write about as like human nature is like how we're just all innately huge hypocrites. You will say XYZ, you're not going to do XYZ. In 2008, 2018, you are the exact thing that you say we're never going to be. Like it almost blows your mind how life almost put that in as like foreshadowing to yourself. Just so you can look in and be like, yeah, you thought you control shit. Let me tell you what's up.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird how everything develops, and taking that idea and kind of like forming it into writing. What do you think are the most important tropes and elements that you always seem to go back to? Like one thing I just realized recently is all my stories, no matter how different they are, this one's in a different planet, different dimension, this one's the point of view of a dog, a horse, an elephant, they are always at the heart about rebellion. I don't know what it is. I just always like somebody standing up to another person. I guess something that just always is like an interesting idea to me. Have you found something like that where it feels like you always kind of revert back to this one little aspect of human nature, of just human emotion that you always kind of revert back to in your writing?
Good question.
Well, I'll throw a couple out there. So Kendra is she was a foster child and she was adopted by her foster parents. That's part of her backstory. So a lot of what she talks about in the first couple books and has continued is her quest for family, her belief in family being supremely important to her. And then one of the major secondary characters she's a professional Navy officer. She was recruited to be a captain of the starship, and what she's teaching anybody who will listen is the difference between fault and responsibility. Where fault looks to the past, fault is assigning blame, fault doesn't help anybody. Responsibility looks to the future. Responsibility is what you're going to do next in response to what just happened. So those two themes keep popping up out of the mouths of these characters. You know, there's always a teaching moment going on. Every book has a couple of them because there's always somebody who needs to learn, who needs this lesson.
Well, if you look at Stephen King's, all his books, if you kind of boil them down to it, always are about dealing with addiction, basically. With
He's a drunk.
Cocaine, right? That was the main thing. He had a problem with coke.
Those two.
Yeah.
And not a cola.
Yeah.
It was if you look back at most of his stories, you have Dr. Sleep, which is probably the most glaring thing because it's written from the point of view of an addict. You have the whole thing of where the person, supposedly it was actually a little bit from his own life, where the protagonist goes over to a person, sleeps with this girl doing drugs, and then he wakes up and it's the girl has a kid. Doesn't know it. She leaves, but the girl's like drunk and he doesn't know it, but the girl ODs. And the kid obviously dies because there was no mother there. I mean, it's a really sad story. And it just speaks to the understanding of the horror of what Stephen King is. It's just, no matter what everything is, there are just certain elements about the human experience that he just always reverts back to. And it's really interesting, honestly, to think back on to think on what it is that people are defined by. Brittany, do you have anything that comes to mind when it comes to Element or when it comes to Life of a Shadow? Or anything future?
I would say, yeah, because we've only written 2 books, so I'm kind of limited, but mental health is definitely big in Element, and its connection to the environment, and how, the further removed we are from being out in nature, which we're mammals, that is where we're supposed to be, really. And the more the less time we spend out there, it does have a toll on people's mental health. At least personally, that's what I find. And I know studies for the most part show even seeing nature, a picture of nature, can help relieve stress and anxiety, right? So I mean, and then add the climate crisis on top of that, and it's very daunting and triggers my anxiety, at least. So that's kind of what my story is about, and definitely keeps kind of repeating throughout the story because the main character has panic attacks, and so she deals with it kind of in different ways depending on the situation, and that will be her character arc and story too, is finding a way to overcome that. And then one other thing too that I find I'm like trying to include in my stories is like just inclusivity, right? Like not having just one race, having characters that are LGBTQ or things like that. Which in the children's book, that was like kind of challenging to do, because I was telling the story kind of from my perspective as a kid. It's about why we have shadows in the story my dad told me. So I grew up in like a nuclear family that, you know, we're all white, like, so I had to try to do that in a way that looked organic and not like I was forcing it. And also, like, my parents kind of believe in like, you grow up, you get married, you have a kid, and that's not me. Like, I'm not married, I don't have children, but the premise of the story is, and then you have a child and the cycle begins again. But I wanted to also include, like, again, all types of families. You know, you can adopt, you can do in vitro, like there's all sorts of ways to have kids nowadays. So I purposely didn't have her pregnant in the story. It was just, we decided to have a family, didn't, no mention of marriage, flip the page, and then a shadow was born again, so that it's like left for kind of interpretation.
I like that.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah. Now, Tara, I know that the whole water crisis within the age of the Almek is kind of a, you know, telling of with our own problems dealing with the whole water acidity. I mean, and everything going. So, do you feel that there's any elements of that you're going to reuse within your own writing, or do you think there's anything within that work that is something that you always dial on in the future, or maybe just something that yourself are just always interested in?
Yeah, aside from that, Age of the Almek has, you know, mental health issues, touches on rebellion. What else do we have? Finding oneself is definitely a big one. So it's my only novel that's been published, but I've written a few short stories, and rebellion and finding oneself they're two pretty big themes that I like to touch on in my writing. It's kind of interesting. I feel like sometimes the themes that we create in our stories are what are a reflection of us and our own sort of, you know, journey through life. And I think we put these things in there and we don't actually realize it. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly why I brought it up. I agree wholeheartedly.
That's what was going through my mind as I was listening. So yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've done that. Yeah, mental health. Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, it's hard to extrapolate, as Tara was saying. You know, hey, what do you have critics for? You know, that's what I always think. You know, isn't that their job to parse it out? All the English professors out there that are teaching our books. Yeah, right. But
well, that's the awesome thing about it, right? The reason I think about this is because I always compare everything to like what English was to me when I first learned about English, which was in school, breaking down Shakespeare in degrees that you're sending back as like, yeah, he probably did not even think about this. Like, why are we bringing it down to this degree? Especially when they start bringing it, it's like, oh, well, around this time he just lost a kid, so it probably has to do with that. It's like, all right, you made a lot of assumptions here, but
yeah.
It is one of those things, for as much as you don't want to admit, it really does play a huge part in everything. Brittany, what were you about to say?
I was just going to say one thing that I love, like, from developmental edits is, yeah, it's basically like what you did in school. Like, here are the themes, like, here's what your characters are like, and like, you know, this and that. And I like reading it to see like what I've gotten across.
What I'm 110 years old.
Pharaoh Kitty.
And like what themes have come through to like kind of, it almost just like validates like, yes, like what I was trying to write is what is being read. And then it's also, of course, great for the times that people or situations don't come across right, and your reader misinterpret, or doesn't misinterpret, but you wrote it in a way that they interpreted it in not the way you intended. But
I was listening to a critic. Yeah, that's true.
That's what bugs me now. You know, if people who haven't read much are big critics suddenly, you know, that's being an old guy. that's the biggest change I've seen, that people's egos after the internet explosion have exploded also. They speak as if they are some kind of, critical experts of everything, when they read your work. It's like they have this vast store of whatever, and then you discover they're basically ignorant.
Yeah. 5 years ago, an opinion meant an opinion. Like you said an opinion, and people were like, oh yeah, it's a good opinion. Now people think an opinion is like actionable. So if I say, oh, I don't like that movie, now that results in that movie having to be gone now. Or if I don't like that comedian, no, that comedian now no longer can work because I don't like him or I don't like her. Which that is the danger. Is when that conviction, I mean, like everyone obviously is entitled to their opinion and their beliefs.
Sure.
So it's when that starts superseding other people's beliefs is when that becomes a problem. Now, Tara, you were about to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say that I was listening to a writer's podcast, and the author said that they'll write their novel and hand it to their editor and say, tell me what I wrote about. And the editor will say, you wrote a story about, a coming of age story, and this is the genre, because as a writer, we're so close to the work that we can't look at it objectively. And sometimes it takes someone else to say, oh, this theme is, snuck itself in there, and right. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
It's very true.
Yeah. I mean, oh my God, it's unreal how almost Freudian all the like human elements that are within yourself and that what you see within life all just ricochet and cascade down into our own writing. And to Brittany's point, it's one of my favorite things about editing. It blows my mind how much I can pinpoint my own like faults within my writing. Know what I mean? What like how like the things that I guess you yourself have like a problem with conveying, your characters also have a problem conveying for whatever reason. You go back, it's like, oh wait a minute, that plan actually wasn't explained as well. And then you think back to points in your life, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I probably didn't explain that plan that well either.
Yeah, I mean, if you dissect yourself, as much as I have, you go back to when you were a first beginning writer. You copy people that you love, and you think every word that comes out of you is whomever your idol is. You're trying to copy their style, and then you finally learn, well, style is really the voice of the characters, that on the page. It's not really Salinger or Vonnegut or whoever you're trying to emulate, trying to copy. It's your unique interpretation of each character and each scene as it happens, rather than this kind of holistic idea we had about writing, that we're going to suddenly, everything we write is going to be great, and just pop out the way a high school composition, does sometimes. But that's the thing with me. Maturity has taught me that, you're only as old as the next blank page. I mean, I'm talking about every writer on earth, and that's what scares us, I think, the most, is that when we face that blank page, we're all alone. Nobody else, really is going to help us that much. And we're able to achieve something, To me, that's still a miracle. I don't care who you are, what grade level, I think it happens. It's a miracle. That's why I keep doing it. And I'll probably be like Henry James on my deathbed, working on my novel. But that's what keeps you ass plus seat, ass plus seat.
Well, I guess that's like a great idea to kind of end on, right? It's like the idea that just everything is like basically this entire episode, and if you're really breaking down, has just been that the ball is on your court with the indies. The text edits, everything, even the comments about pushing it to the limit. What I mean by that is when a person picks up your book, are they going to be able to tell that it's indie published? If the answer is yes, you need to go back to the drawing board.
Right.
You know, you need to make sure that your shit is undeniable. The most and the best compliment and advice I've ever gotten from a boss was you need to make yourself irreplaceable, unmistakable.
Yeah.
And that is in any industry, in any field, and specifically here. We always talk about, it's like, oh, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing enough marketing and all this? It all goes back to the content. If you drop some fire, it's gonna burn people. That is it. And word of mouth is a motherfucker. People will, you will eventually get your due.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's in your lifetime or not, that's a travesty of artists. I'm sorry.
So
Van
true.
Gogh died penniless. I hope you know that.
No.
Sorry, it's the truth.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, just keep in mind that maybe you'll be famous when you're dead.
Exactly. It could be
Exactly.
depressing or it could be awesome, right? It's the idea that, all right, if you're not famous now, well, maybe after death. And if you believe in reincarnation, maybe you'll be the critic reviewing your own shit in the next life.
Yep.
It all comes in, folks.
That's right.
So again,
Yay.
this
I like that ending.
Now, this is going to be the end of the podcast. We're going to do a quick little sign off. Brittany, where can people find you?
authorbrittanyleonard.com or on Instagram at authorbrittanyleonard.
And make sure to hop on for the Instagram. You can all the updates on the graphic novel she's doing, all the drawings. She does it herself, folks. And you can check on that progress on her Instagram page. And she does constant stories and little things. The last thing you just posted was an unboxing of the Life of a Shadow, correct?
Yeah, last week I got them in the mail, and I did my first autographs this week too, which was really fun.
Yeah, motherfucker. Adam, where can the people find you?
Okay, I'm at CassidyChronicles.com. That's the website. You can find me on Instagram at Adam Gaffen. I'm on Facebook as well, Adam Gaffen. You know, just there's only one of me, so I don't have to.
Yeah,
come up
no
with
clones, huh?
no clones.
That's
So
for the
I don't have to.
fifth book.
So I don't
That's the
have to
fifth
come
book.
up
Don't
with a
spoil it.
clever. I don't have to come up with a clever name. But yeah, love to hear from people. And this cover that's right behind me, that's up for.
It's awesome.
Yeah, this cover is up for cover of the month at alllll.com. Go and vote. I need your votes. I can't. My cover designer can't win without your vote, and I've already voted.
Sounds
again,
good.
and the audiobook for the third book in the series is coming out in a month, and the paper book and the ebook for all 4 books are already available since 2 weeks ago, I believe, is when he dropped it, the 4th book.
April 16th. Yep.
You heard it here first, folks. Well, probably you heard it here like 7th or 8th, but you get the point. Pick it up. Tara, where can people find you?
Tara A. Lake on Instagram and taraalake.com. Yeah,
And
send me a message. And I'm also on a part of the Indie Writers Collective. If you're interested in having an author interview, check us out over there.
reach out. They have a showcase of awesome author people and just everything. It's just phenomenal. Make sure to check it out. Age of the Almek on Amazon. James, last but not least.
Yes, I'm emerypublishing.com, EMRE publishing.com. And Jim Musgrave, I go by at Facebook. And so.
The Dancing Murders. And he also has a book coming out called The Choose Your Own Suspect. So it's kind of like the Choose Your Own.
That's the one.
Yep.
That's the same one and the one.
Yep.
The one and the same.
So make sure to check that out. This has been the end of the podcast. I cannot thank my guest enough. Just another great week, another great chat in between just authors I really, really admire and really respect. So again, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Make sure to check out everything they have to offer. Show them some love. Show them some support. That has been the A.R.T. This has been A.R.'s Tales, aka the A.R.T. podcast. I've been A.R. Mirabal, Brittany, Adam, Tara, and James. Thank you. We will check up on you next week. Peace out.